Welcome back to Why the Small Face podcast. I'm Susan, and the reason why this episode is talking about it is time. We have had something that we did in the past week, which was a big decision that we held off for probably a little longer than we needed to. And we finally decided it is time. So I'm going to share what that experience was, what the process was like, and how it relates to this podcast, Why the Small Face, which is all about human and horse communication. If you're new here, let me explain. My husband and I bought this property as a horse farm, and we've been here a little over 3 months. Horses are not something that I grew up with. Horses are not something that I am super comfortable with. Horses are animals that I absolutely love, but I am learning every single day about myself in my interactions with these beautiful creatures. So, the other side of what I do is I work in an industry, the nonprofit world, where I've been leading teams for decades. I've been in the executive and C suite for about 10 years. So, I keep stumbling upon these little nuggets of information as I'm so desperately trying to push relationship between me and these horses, that what they continue to reveal to me is that I need to constantly assess where I'm coming from in how I approach them and how my interactions with them reflect and mirror back to me, my values, my strengths, my weaknesses. And there's just no way to not notice that what is happening as I'm seeing that reflection come back pushes me to examine my entire life in every role that I am a part of: a boss, a friend, a mom, a spouse, all of those things. So that's why we call it Why the Small Face, because generally we look at horses and say, oh, why the long face is the punchline of the joke. And if we're only thinking about them, which was my approach to let me understand them, let me know them, let me shove myself onto them so that they know I'm here and I care, we can't forget the part about what they're reflecting back, which I would think in their mind would be, hey, why the small face? It's all about you, lady. Like, figure yourself out, and then we can really get somewhere in this relationship. So that's the premise for the podcast. It is something that I've been enjoying just thinking about as the days go by. And last week, we did this big thing where we joined two separate herds into one. What I had been learning in studying my own podcasts and reading books and doing all the things about what do I need to know about horses so that I can be a better horse owner and a better human in relationship with them. I know that there is herd behavior that humans don't change. We need to understand it, but we're not going to change it. The way horses are is how they are, and they're that way for a reason. As we talked about before, horses are really wired 100% sensory based. So there is no frontal lobe, no executive function going on in their mind. We can train them, and really good trainers will get the best out of a horse because they understand the horse before they ask it and teach it and tell it what they would like it to do. So, right then and there is the point number one that fascinates me about human behavior. So, if we are humans and we're understanding how to approach an animal in that regard, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could approach humans in that regard? And human to human, consider what do I need to know about this other person, and what is that person's behavior teaching me about my own understanding of the world and life and how people interact. So knowing that we're going to have to get through this two separate herds. We had a herd of 3 horses, and then we had a herd of 4. And they weren't completely separate and unknown to each other. They've actually been neighboring each other in pastures that join with a fence. So they've been seeing each other. They see each other in the barn. They know each other's smells, all of that kind of thing. But they haven't had free reign, free access to run through the pastures together. So the interesting thing about this is that when I would watch our herd of the 3, we had 2 large paints and 1 chestnut mare who's a pony. The chestnut mare, this little pony, she would get after the one paint daily. She would nip at its rear end, she would nip at its front end. She would just chase this horse around all the time. And I wondered if it was because of an age thing, perhaps, because the pony is about 23 years old and the paint that I'm talking about is only 3. And the 3-year-old paint is very much in everybody's face, humans, horses, anyone else who happens to show themselves. She's just all over everything. She wants to play. She wants to sniff. She wants to nibble. She's just very curious about her world. And she doesn't have much of a filter, and she doesn't really get the whole body buffer zone thing. So I think with the older mare, chestnut pony, she's lived a little, right? And she's gone through those days. So now I think she's just throwing her energy at the paint. Like, I'm not into that. I need to back off. So we would watch that dynamic. And then the other horse in that threesome is our Maggie, who's also a paint, full size. She's somewhere between, I don't know, 13, 15, somewhere around there. She is just kind of neutral. She was Switzerland in all of this. She'd eat, she would do her thing, but she wasn't chasing anybody off, but she also wasn't really getting picked on. So she just, I don't know if she was ruling the roost or if the pony was ruling the roost, but Maggie was pretty neutral. And then in the foursome of the herd that we board, there are 2 horses who are they're very close, but they also have very interesting backgrounds of stories that I will probably never know. I'm not sure that I want to know because I don't think they were very positive. But with their stories being what they are, their behavior today can be a multitude of things. We see sweetness, we see calm, we see irritation, we see lack of trust in other. I don't know if it's just humans or other horses, but there's a trust issue. So that can come across as a fear-based type behavior, kicking, vocalizing. Again, many of which is normal herd behavior, but knowing that there is some past trauma in those horses' lives, there's a little element of surprise because you don't always know how that's going to manifest. So we had those 2 horses. Then the other 2 in that herd, one was a paint who's also pretty chill. She's, I never really saw her super excited. She wasn't throwing any strange vibes, pretty chill. Excuse me. And then another mare, chestnut mare, who's, 30, in the 30 range. And she's pretty mild too. So again, animals that I don't have a large history with. So there's always that element of surprise as far as what I'm constantly wondering, who are they? How are they? What are they going to do? So I've constantly kept my distance, just watched from afar, talk to them through the fences. And when they're in their stall at night, pet their heads. That's about as far as it went for me. So knowing that we're going to bring these 2 together, I had seen some behavior with our boarded horses that even the ones who liked each other, they would kick sometimes and just do these things that made me fearful that our horses, will they be okay? Are they going to get run off from the food? Are they going to get kicked? Are they going to get bit? Are they going to get what we would see in human behavior, bullied and ostracized and all of those things that made my human meter and my past traumas fire up and get really concerned about, because I was so worried about what are we going to do if something like that happens. And the truth is, there's really nothing you can do. You have to let the horses work it out and you have to let them find their way. And because my human brain just wants to reconcile that with like being in a preschool room, there's lots of behavior that we see in small children that they need to find their way, but we're also there to guide them. And it's our job to be teaching how to interact with the world. So it's hard to undo that as a human and just let the animals do their thing. So all of that said, the day before we joined the pastures together, My husband Rick said to me, I've been thinking, and tomorrow I'm going to open the gates and we're going to let them all join. And my initial response was, of course, fear, because I haven't outgrown my fear-based response yet. I'm working on it, but this taught me that I have not yet. So I was immediately fearful. And when I have an immediate fearful response, I have graduated from just being mean and being angry to I could feel my jaw was really tight. And I was listening with this very tense face, thinking in my mind, thinking, how am I going to talk him out of this? This is too much. I don't know that I can handle all of the stress and anxiety. And at the same time, the other side of my brain was saying, well, of course, this has to happen, because really, how are we going to receive more horses to board here if we can't manage the pastures and move herds and do these sorts of things that I know we needed to do? But it was just the element of I finally got comfortable with what I know about how we're keeping them, that the issue for me was changing something I was comfortable with and upping my threshold tolerance, I guess, for stress. So my response was coming so much more from me being a stressed human than it was fear for what the horses would experience, even though there was a legitimate fear for what the horses would experience. And are we experienced enough to manage that? So all of those things were happening at the same time. So at any rate, going back to Rick saying to me, this is what I'm thinking for tomorrow, my jaw getting very tight. And I'm thinking, of course, we have to do this. It is time. I was forced to face what was happening inside, because I was thinking, all right, I know I'm already having a physical response. Rick is probably looking at me thinking, he's probably trying to compute what is happening there. Because in Rick's mind, okay, it's time. Let's do this. Here's my plan. Let's go. And it is pretty much that simple. I'm sure there are some other things that he's thinking that could be element of concern, things we should be aware of. But he's not unpacking and dissecting the way I am. Thank God, because there's only room for one person to do that in a relationship. And it's me. So I was feeding some of my thoughts back to him, just in the trying to get some, I guess, assurance and reassurance that he had thought some of these things through that are legitimate. So we talked those things through and said, oh, okay. And I could feel my jaw loosen back up a little bit. And I thought, I need to give this over. Every day we pray about these things. So am I going to be a person who prays and then tries to get control right back? Or am I going to be a person who prays and really give it over to the creator that I'm praying to say, I trust you with it. So get us through. Those application practical processes that we have to go through really do reflect, am I doing what I say I believe? Okay. So at any rate, the morning came that it was time to let them all join and run free. It also happened to be a morning where it was, I think, 8 or 9 degrees. It was not warm. And the snow was very blustery, almost blizzard-like, but it was coming in little spurts. So we knew it was still a day they could be outside. It will be fine. But what was happening is I'm trying to watch all of this and the snow is blowing all over. So I'm watching from the kitchen window because that's my safe space to watch everything. And just watching what I perceived as pure joy. These horses were so enthralled with where they could go and who they could connect with and how they could socialize and interact. I think probably the first 30 minutes was pure chaos because they were just running around like, who's this and what's that? And, oh, there's food here, there's food there, and what's over here and what's over there. So it was kind of fun. But then you could see as the day went on, they got really deliberate and intentional about seeking each other out. So within the course of the day, we had the little pony who she was always nipping the 3-year-old. She joined right up with the 30-year-old mare. And it gives me goosebumps just talking about it. Now I have to fix my nose. She was so sweet. And the 30-year-old mare was so sweet. They just immediately bonded. So you could see the older mare kind of like circling around and keeping the pony in a place where she was protected and had access to food, and nobody was going to get too close to her without the bigger one letting them do that. And we just watched this little pony walk around with confidence, which was so amazing. And as the day went on, you could see when the pony wanted to go explore new places she hadn't been, it's almost like she didn't know what she didn't know. She didn't know that they were these places, but I could see the larger horse, Maggie, was leading her to these places, almost like, well, come on, I got to show you this and let me take you over here. And she just did it with this lovely partnership, just taking her around. And then the pony would run off and she would check things out. And she's pretty independent, which we learned in this process as well. She likes to go off and have some alone time and alone space, but then she'd circle back up with her buddy. And it's just been a beautiful thing to watch. We've watched this relationship build day by day, and it's the spirit of their relationship is all about this partnership. It's almost like they're checking in on each other to be like, are you okay? Are you not too lonely? Do you need some companionship? So they're not racing with each other. They're not raising hell somewhere. They're just checking in on each other. And it's just been beautiful. So that's been lovely to watch. The other thing that we've been enjoying is that the two that have the trauma history, they don't separate a whole lot. So in my mind, I kind of had constructed this whole junior high dynamic that they're going to be the ones that have to give everybody else permission to do whatever it is they do. And if they don't like what's happening, they're going to have something to say about it. Again, do I need to construct this narrative in my head? No. But does it just show up there? Yes. So as I'm watching, I was so relieved to see that most of that narrative was very untrue. It never came to pass. These two, they their energy is kind of big energy, but it's also more playful and more, dare I say, inclusive than I expected it to be. So, you might see them like, I want to be first to the hay bale, or I want to check this out, but they're not pushing each other off. No one's getting, well, I have seen a few kicks to the face. But again, it's because someone is, usually that someone is the 3-year-old, is kind of all up in someone else's business, like, hey, want to play, and she can't not be that way. So sometimes if the horses don't want anything to do with it, they're just going to nudge her out. And most of the time they will use their body and they will use their energy and they'll use some sound to do that. Sometimes, it's kind of like that little yippy dog from the cartoons in 1970s. Sometimes they don't get it. So you get the big bulldog who like kicks them and like scram, it's the same dynamic watching them do this. So we've seen friendships that we didn't expect to be friendships. We've seen some of them tolerate each other in a way that we never expected to see. And we've seen just allowances for each other's differences, which again is such a beautiful thing, because in my mind, I was trying to think, how do we control that, right? Anyone else have control issues? And I was so eager to want to control it that I wasn't intuitively allowing it to happen. Now, because I'm not out in the pasture directing traffic, thank God, it did just happen. So I got to see it from a safe distance and appreciate it and then reflect on it. And in my reflection, I'm thinking, I'm thinking about classrooms. I'm thinking about boardrooms. I'm thinking about one-on-one coachings. I'm thinking about just coffee dates with friends. How many times as humans are we showing up trying to control the outcome in the process because we want the end result to be a certain way that brings us comfort and peace? And instead of just allowing the interaction to flow and be real and actually give it the opportunity to be something so much better than what we've constructed in our narrative, it kind of made me sad and excited at the same time. It made me sad because it forced me to recognize that I do this all the time. I don't know exactly why I lack the ability to be comfortable in just what it is, but I recognize that I need to grow in that and sit in that instead of trying to construct this narrative of what an outcome could potentially look like. As I think about it, I feel like I need to start writing apology notes to people that are close to me, right? Like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry that I might have prevented you from being your true and authentic self because I was so busy trying to orchestrate an interaction for the benefit of my comfort. And that to me makes me sad because I don't think that's the best way to show up in a relationship, in any relationship. And at the same time, the fact that I'm considering the potential of what could be as I continue to practice and get better and stay out of my own way and just let things be, that makes me excited and happy for what is still yet to come in these relationships, whether it is as a spouse, as um, a mom, a grandma, a sibling, at work, all of these places. I find it fascinating that all of these things spin in my head all the time anyway, but there's something about interacting with horses and their energy. And as I'm building relationship with them, that just it acts as a catalyst for my own level of understanding and self-reflection and just I don't know. I don't want to say force. It's more like a big, huge invitation to do better. So I'm like, oh, then I feel like the cliche is horse people are going to be the people who tell you, if you want to be a better human, just get a horse. They're going to bring out the best in you and they're going to make you realize the things that might not be so fantastic. And then you have to do something with that. Any saying that is cliche about that very thing, I feel like I'm just the billboard for these days. So there must be some truth in that because I can't be the only one. And it wouldn't be a cliche if people couldn't relate to it. So at any rate, watching this herd become the two become one has been so fantastic. And I think one of the highlights of them figuring out, oh, we can go here, we can go there, we can do it together, we can have space. We have three minis who have their own pasture and they are separated. Their pasture is separated from the other pastures with this walkway that goes from the backside of our barn to the front side of our indoor arena. So that space in between has always been the pathway for the humans and for bringing horses back and forth to different pastures. Well, that was wide open as we dropped the gates and just let them go. So all these big horses came running over and stuck all their heads over into the mini pasture because they were fascinated, enthralled, excited. I don't know what it was, but it's just really adorable. Our largest horse that's on the property right now is just over 17 hands. And he is amazing. He's just a powerful beauty. And he, with his big, huge self, lowered his head down into the mini pasture and was sniffing one of our sweet little minis, little bear. And he's so chill and he's so adorable. But for whatever reason, little bear was not thrilled to have Irish in his space. So he just whipped his head around and showed his teeth a little bit and nipped at him. And the big one just kind of backed off like, okay, buddy, that's cool. But it's fascinating to me, right? Because I'm still coming from the whole junior high schoolyard. Like, can you imagine the possibilities if someone throws their energy at you for whatever reason and with whatever intent, and you're comfortable and confident enough? I don't know if it was comfortable and confident because I think it's survival mode, but to clap back. And as someone who experienced a lot of the junior high terribleness and didn't know anything about the whole clap back possibility, it was just like, just take it, just take it, just take it. It fascinates me. And it makes me again think back like, wow, a little bit of assertion, right? Just confident assertiveness can really change the dynamic and bring comfort and peace in a way that, okay, everyone's just going to be who they are. Like, it's fine. If I did something to bother you, I'm going to back off and then we're going to figure it out and we're going to land in a place that we can exist together. I just think that's really pretty awesome. And it gives me hope that in the spaces where we are interacting with people all the time and we have those same dynamics, did I push too hard? Did I come in too hot? Am I just annoying you because our energy is so different? We can give each other and read those cues and those signs that we can adjust and back off without changing who we are, but finding a place to be in that harmonious space where you're okay, I'm okay, we're all doing this, no matter what your trauma background is, no matter what my particular background is, we can do this and be at peace and get the best out of each other. It's just an interesting dynamic. Every day on the farm, our goal is healthy. And when things are healthy and the animals are healthy, the people are healthy, we all feel comfortable, we feel at peace, and we feel like we can be productive and moving in our purpose. So anything that takes us out of that productivity in our purpose is when things start to feel a little askew. And I would argue that the very same is happening at the workplace. It's happening in the classroom. It's happening at family dinner. So the more we can be thinking about that open growth mindset and stay open to what is this other person bringing in and what am I bringing in and how are those dynamics impacting each other in this big relationship of what we're here to do, staying aware and open helps us move in our purpose and it helps us stay grounded. If we're outside of our purpose and we're fighting it, we're trying to control elements of it, we're trying to throw ourselves with power and authority over another human or another thing, an animal, whatever it might be, a project, we're not going to get the best out of that situation no matter what. And we're not creating any kind of ground for that other person to grow or for ourselves to be at our best. So I would challenge you, as I've been challenged by these interactions, I would challenge you to think about what is it that you're doing in your environments? What are you someone who, like me, is thinking so much ahead about constructing a particular way of doing things, no matter what the intent is? Listen, I do that with a very good intent. It doesn't mean it's good. It's not a good practice, even though I really want a good outcome. Are you doing that? And if you are you doing that because you are fearful of just being with what is real, what is now, what is happening? I don't know. It's something for you to reflect on and think, are you going in as the best person that you can? Are you going in and the other person in that dynamic is thinking, why the small face? Do you need to check yourself? Do you need to unpack a few things? So I'm going to encourage you to sit with that in your space, whatever that might be, and observe what you're doing, observe what's coming up, and then decide for yourself, are these things serving me and my purpose? Is it helping this other person in their purpose? And if not, give yourself time and space to unpack it a little bit and just sit and then react later after you have sat with something long enough that you recognize and identify where you want to go with it, rather than just being in that state of fight, flight, and respond with no thought. It is a game changer. And I appreciate that I'm at a property where, even though I feel like I'm still drinking from the fire hose and I'm way in over my head, I'm at a property where I can step out to the barn, open my mind, and say, just teach me. Teach me whatever my lesson is for today and allow it to help me to be a better human here in the barn and out in the world. And whatever your parallel is, whatever your equivalent is of that, I pray that you have an experience like that so that you can move fully in your purpose. The world needs people moving fully in their purpose. When we're doing that, we help lift others up instead of squashing them down. And it's just a more harmonious place to be. So before I leave you today, thank you for staying with me this long. Can I just say, yeah, I have a very busy thing going on here. Lots of colors behind me and lots of colors on me, but can I just say how much I love this shirt? So, do you know Rank 45? Rank 45 jeans, they're fantastic. And this Western shirt, absolutely love it. We did have, so it's got our little, this was our logo that we made before the logo we use now, just the Bull Montrose 6 with the little horse head in there. We created this logo a couple years ago when we partnered with Bull Ownership with Jerome and Tiffany Davis. Love, love, love them. Love our partnership with them. We needed a name as our partners. And of course, our Bull Montrose 6 name has been with us forever. But I just want to say we've been calling this Bull Montrose 6 Farm into existence for many years. And this was one of the logos that our son-in-law designed for us, which we absolutely love. We have evolved as we've finally landed here on our farm. And as we evolved, we changed that logo to include a couple other things that are near and dear to our heart that will be part of the future of this farm. So, but I will just say, this was a fun occasion buying this shirt. Rick and I have a little, I don't know if I'd call it a problem because we're so good at it. It's probably a problem. We love to shop at Boot Barn. We just lose our mind when we go into that place. So we went to Boot Barn in Erie, Pennsylvania. We've been to Boot Barn in Greensboro, North Carolina. And then there's a new one that opened up just outside of Buffalo, which Rick has checked out with Ricky, his oldest son. And I haven't been there in a long time because we put a mad hurting on that place every time we go. But my goal is to share a little bit of Boot Barn every time we show up in this space. The first episode, I remember the shirt and I remember shopping for it. I had a rock and roll denim farm shirt on, and that thing is awesome too. So I'm just going to say, if you need something fun to do in the dead of winter and you've not been to a Boot Barn and you have a passion for anything Western style, whether it's jewelry, boots, shoes, any kind of clothing, hats, their hats are awesome. You just got to go. Just get out and go and have fun because it never disappoints. We always have fun there. I'm going to enjoy wearing this for the rest of the day with my Rank 45 sweatshirt that I'm going to throw over it, which is kind of like this turquoise color. It's my podcast. I get to decide if I want to talk about shopping, which of course I do. All things leadership, all things personal growth and development, and we've got to throw the shopping in there. So if you made it this long, thank you so much. Happy shopping, happy horsing around. Go do something great, go do something awesome, do it on purpose, and have fun.